So we have over on the right, Trent Avera, perfect record here, as well as Sky going on ad nauseum. Both players have kept on 7s. And Sky will start the game on a suspended Lotus Bloom. Remember ad nauseum, that was actually the deck that won the Open last weekend. And he is going full throttle here. Turn 1 Lotus Bloom and pitch Simian Spirit Guide for Pentad Prism. And cast Sleight of Hand. So that it looks scary, but actually he's using this Pentad Prism. That's a big expenditure of cards just to kind of fix his mana.
And it looks like he had the Sleight of Hand and a Serum Visions in hand, no other blue source. And with the Lotus Bloom, it's pretty easy to get to the threshold of mana to start casting ad nauseum plus Angel's Grace.
Yeah, because he kind of burned through a mana there using the Spirit Guide that way.
This is the kind of start that can really put him in trouble against a Thoughtseize and Inquisition, a Kozilek, but I don't mind the spot here.
A swing from Goblin Guide comes from Avera. It shows Laboratory Maniac on top of Sky's deck. As opposed to the deck we saw win last weekend, Sky does have 2 win conditions. He has 1 copy of Lightning Storm and then that 1 Lab Maniac. Certainly drawing it before the combo turn is not how he'd like to see things go.
You know, it's not ideal. It's really the matter of whether he's drawing that and not drawing both combo pieces.
All right, so Temple of Deceit's the play for Sky. That's the blue mana he was looking for. Found it off Sleight of Hand. He scries to the bottom and says go. 2 turns left on this Lotus Bloom. That's what we're going to have to keep our eyes on.
And you'll notice he does have that Serum Visions, that second blue cantrip in hand. Did not expend the Pentad Prism mana because he drew the Temple off of the Sleight of Hand, and he'll be able to cast the Serum Visions and a card that he scried to the top, or 1 after scrying 2 to the bottom before that Lotus Bloom comes off suspend.
Yeah, he also has a copy of Phyrexian Unlife in his hand. And you mentioned that as one of the most powerful spells you could play against Burn.
Yes.
Avera, though, the best thing that he can do out of the Burn deck is to have a fast clock, and it looks like he has just that. Had the turn 1 Goblin Guide. He's thinking about playing double Monastery Swift Spear here on the 2nd turn.
Yeah, that's some really nice aggression.
Yeah, it means all his, then, you know, his burn spells down the line, Boros Charm starts hitting for 6. There's a lot to like in that.
The thing is, though, Sky was on the play. With the Lotus Bloom on suspend, very likely to have a turn 4 kill. Burn just doesn't have that many turn 3s.
Yeah, I mean, if Sky has a turn 4 kill on the play, from the Burn side, you just, and sometimes you just have to shrug and say, well, all right, you got it, friend. But you do see Goblin Guide and the 2 Swiftspears swinging in for 4. The top of the deck for Sky is not being too friendly here. You see he's going to draw Pact of Negation this turn. So you know his hand has both a Laboratory Maniac and Pact of Negation in it. Neither of those cards are any good right now.
Pact of Negation actually can allow Sky to beat a turn 3 kill if Trent needs to resolve a burn spell on this next turn here, because he can actually win the game on his upkeep.
Right, he can, okay, so he can combo on his upkeep. He doesn't even need Angel's Grace.
Well, he would need Angel's Grace to not lose. And he don't have to control Phyrexian Unlife or cast Angel's Grace on that window, so they can actually ad nauseum there. But he'll get the Lotus Bloom. He'll be able to ad nauseum with that Pact of Negation trigger on the stack and win the game before that resolves.
Okay. You see resolving another Serum Visions. He's got 2 lands to scry. I think it looks like he's going to keep one of them on top. Pretty smart in the face of Goblin Guide.
The question here is whether or not Sky has the combo rolled up.
You know, there looks to be some trouble on the left side of the battlefield. I'm not even sure that if he has the combo or the 3rd land. Next turn, he'll get to have 6 mana total, even without the land drop. Maybe 7 after he draws the land. So if he has the combo, he should be good to go. But I think Trent is going to give a turn 4 kill, especially with this kind of start.
I spy a Phyrexian Unlife in the hand of Sky. No sign of an ad nauseum as of yet.
This is what Burn can do very well. It can force Sky to have that turn 4. See, counting through it. Yeah, Phyrexian Unlife, Simian Spirit Guide, Laboratory Maniac, and Pact of Negation appear to be the cards in Sky's hand. The top card of his deck is a land. And Ryan, I have a really cheeky play here from Trent. If he's got some extra damage in his hand, is there a chance that Trent just, and you know, so Sky scried to a card to the top with Serum Visions. Is there a chance that Trent just holds back Goblin Guide to deny an out? Just says, okay, don't draw this land. I know you kept a land on top. Here you go.
Yeah, it's certainly possible.
Sky burns that last Pentad Prism counter to put Phyrexian Unlife into play. Definitely worried about a turn 3 kill.
Well, the thing about this situation now with the Unlife in play, 2 lands, Lotus Bloom, Sky doesn't need a land.
Right. He just needs Ad Nauseam.
Cast Ad Nauseam with the 5 mana off the Bloom and the 2 lands, and then you draw your... Well, actually, no, there's 2 Simian Spirit Guys exiled now because of that Pentad Prism play. So Sky does need a land.
Well, he could cast Ad Nauseam, and then he'll draw a land, right?
Sure. Yeah, that's right. I suppose when you draw 45 plus cards, you'll probably hit an untapped land.
So this not saying Goblin Guide play is interesting to me here, because if Sky already has Ad Nauseam, Trent's not going to win, right? He's got the kill with the Unlife. So you assume Sky doesn't have Ad Nauseam. If he doesn't have Ad Nauseam, don't draw him a card deeper. Take a turn off. Say, yeah, go find one.
I think it's largely just the question on the breakdown of the math between clocking with Phyrexian Unlife, whether or not you need to attack with a Goblin Guide on this turn.
Sure, we have a burn spell upstairs for 3, and then a swing in with Creatures. Prowess has triggered, so it looks like 9 damage going to be sent off this turn. And there's the Darkslick Shores that he put on top. And then Grim Lavamancer for Avera. That actually helps here because when he can deal damage in smaller quantities, like with that Lavamancer, so what Trent needs to do is he needs to get Sky to 0, and then he'd like to get him to 0 before the attack phase.
Right.
Because then the attack will all be for Infect. You see Darkslick Shores played by Sky, he just passes. Question here is, will Trent give Sky one more turn to top deck that Ad Nauseam?
Trent is coming up a little bit short, given the presence of only 2 lands on the battlefield, of being able to assemble something that could be lethal this turn, potentially.
Yeah, if you had a land, it could be something like Lava Spike, Lavamancer activation, Bolt Your Face would do it, I think. But he needed like 2 Lightning Bolts and a land.
Yeah, he needs to trigger Prowess a couple of times to be able to get together 10 additional damage.
And this is a really... Okay, so it looks like he's going to be able to do it. He uses Skullcrack to put Sky to 2, does draw a land. So this means he'll get to activate Grim Lavamancer to put Sky to 0. And with that happening at Sky at 0, now all the damage is doing Infect. Phyrexian Unlife, that super weird card.
We'll see if Sky has an Angel's Grace here. I would like to stay at 1.
And Ad Nauseam is the top card for Sky. He goes to 6 poison.
Well, that's going to be game.
That's the one he was looking for, and it looked like Avera was going to get this one. There were 4 outs in Sky's deck.
Slightly more than 4,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he could have cantripped into it.
Right.
But he does find a copy of Ad Nauseam, and it looks like that's going to be good enough to get the game for him. So, we'll go through it here. Sacrifices Lotus Bloom.
Standard Classic players.
For 3 mana. 4/5. You see he's going to make 3 red. So he has a red mana floating. He spends 2 of his red and all the mana from his lands to cast Ad Nauseam. He's going to draw his whole deck. That's a red mana. We assume that's red. It doesn't actually have to be, but it is.
Yep, 2 more Simian Spirit Guides will be in there.
So he'll draw his whole deck, take about 40 more damage or around there.
2 Simian Spirit Guides, a Lightning Storm, a full grip of lands. Discard your lands, holding priority on that Lightning Storm to get up to lethal damage against Trent, making sure to not discard every land in your deck so that you have at least 1 left over.
This is a really weird card, yeah.
So that your opponent can't just throw it back at you.
So yeah, he's going to pitch the remaining 2 Simian Spirit Guides in his deck and use that floating red mana to cast Lightning Storm. You can discard a land.
One of the most...
Basically your lands become shocks until end of turn. You can just pitch them for 2.
A really weird Seismic Assault.
Plus an additional 3. So 5, 7, 9, 11.
One of the most beloved cards in the Cold Snap expansion. In fact, one of the very few liked cards.
So this will make 17 damage, and that will go across. Sky Goy takes game 1 in what ended up being a very close game between the 2.
Mm-hmm. That's how a lot of the games for the Ad Nauseam deck look.
Just holding on, holding on.
You have some nut draws, but any hand with certainly 2 cantrips and a Lotus Bloom, that's super keepable.
All right, so we're looking at the sideboards between the players. This is one of the matchups that a burn player really fears. You see him losing game 1, and then when you look at the sideboard for Skygoy, you can see just why this one's tough.
Yeah, I'm not too thrilled to play against Leyline of Sanctity with my Lava Spike deck.
Yeah, we actually saw round 1, our Ad Nauseam player, our defending champion from last week, play 4 Leyline of Sanctity in the main deck. Ugh. But 4 Leyline of Sanctity, okay, making it so you can't be the target of spells, that just sounds amazing.
Yep.
So he brings those in. Looking at other cards, we have Thoughtseize, Patrician Scorn, Painful Truths, Hercule's Recall, Slaughter Pact, Boseiju, and Echoing Truth. Anything you like here, Ryan?
The 3 copies of Darkness.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's going to prevent the out of your opponent killing you with creatures when you have Leyline. That one seems quite solid here.
Darkness, if you're not familiar, it's just the card Fog,
Yep.
but it's 1 black mana.
Right, from Legends. Modern legal by virtue of being time shifted.
So we now have Fog. What you can play: White Fog, regular Fog, Black Fog. When are Red and Blue gonna? Or when's Blue gonna get Fog? Right, 1 blue.
Blue. Oh, it's not, it doesn't have a 1 blue fog. But blue does have some fogs. You got Cryptic Command. You got Giga Drowse.
No, just 1 blue Fog. When are they gonna? I think that's totally reasonable.
Nope.
Waiting for that card.
That would actually probably making the Taking Turns deck too good.
What is it? Exhaustion? Does that count for Blue Fog?
Sure.
All right. Looks like Sky and the Judge are fixing some broken sleeves here for the next game, so there's going to be a second as the players do that. But that gives us time to talk about Trent's deck. Very straightforward. 4 Path to Exile. Okay, no creatures in Sky's deck. Fine. 4 Destructive Revelry, 3 Deflecting Palm, 3 Atarka's Command, and a Searing Blaze. Now, on the surface, that you might think, hey, Trent died to a 17-point burn spell. Deflecting Palm is going to be pretty good here. But that's not actually how it works.
Yeah, you'll also note that Sky had a Pact and Negation in hand before resolving Ad Nauseam.
And he drew his whole deck. So
pretty easy to... You can't fight against Ad Nauseam with something you plan to do after Ad Nauseam resolves. They just use Slaughter Pact and or Pact and Negation to solve all of their problems for 0 mana. So the card that Trent is looking at here is Destructive Revelry because it can destroy Phyrexian Unlife. Sometimes you take a Pentad Prism.
Sure. Now, is there a chance that he could hit Lotus Bloom with it during upkeep or something like that, or no-go?
Generally, it's going to be a no-go. You can just cast Ad Nauseam plus Angel's Grace in your upkeep. We could see Trent maybe bringing in these Atarka's commands. It's something that can at least pump your team when your opponent has Leyline of Sanctity. But it's not a very exciting card. It doesn't especially matter. So mostly some number of Destructive Revelry. Trent does not want to get caught with a hand full of this naturalize effect, even though it is quite good in the spots where it's good. It can end up costing him games if he draws too many when it's not the proper spot for that.
Yeah, pretty so. But I think one of the difficult parts on the burn side, at least Trent's, is that game 1 he really did just about the best his deck could do. If Sky's going to hit the combos on time, that's just about where it's going to end. All right, so players are going to get ready for a second game here. We're going to talk about the SCG Tour. So this is our second Modern Open of the Season 1. We have tons more Magic to go. So this season, we started at the December Invitational at the beginning of December. That was the main event won by Jacob Baugh, as we see on Energy Tokens. But so far the season started with a pair of wins from Brennan DeCandio. We had him as the Open champion in Atlanta, and then winning again in the Columbus weekend. We got our second winner in Richmond as former Invitational winner Dylan Donegan won that tournament. Took a break for regionals and then went over to Baltimore a few weeks ago, where really our first team event ever was won by one of the strongest teams in the field.
Yep. Matt Nass, Sam Party, and Ben Stark taking it down.
Yeah, and in what was a really dominating performance, not losing a single game throughout the elimination rounds. Very impressive for them. Then we went over to Indianapolis. We had our first Modern Open. That was just a week ago. And so far, the first trophy, that was handed to Nicholas Bird playing Ad Nauseam. And looks like right now it's Sky Goy up a game. Ad Nauseam perhaps could just be the 2-time winner in Modern.
Yeah.
So we're in Dallas for Modern this weekend. Then we take about a month break, but we have our first Legacy Open of the season. That's going to be Worcester, April 8th and 9th. So one of the things we actually have a lot of this is shaping out to be a season where we have a lot of opportunities to play Legacy. We had the February Baltimore Open, the Legacy only Open. This is in April in Worcester. And as you'll see later on the schedule, we now have added a second team open that's May 20th and 21st in Louisville. Before that, though, 3 weeks earlier, we'll be in Atlanta to play Standard. And then at the end of May, we'll be back in Baltimore. This time not for a team open, but it'll be for a Modern Open before we make our way to Charlotte for Modern and end at the end of June, our Season 1 Invitational, which is, of course, both Modern and Standard.
If you live anywhere near Louisville or have the disposable income for a plane ticket and you have at least 2 friends, pre-register for Louisville now.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'm really starting to like about this is a lot of players, when our schedule come out, have said, you know, they love to see that high-level support of Legacy. One of the problems is, as Legacy, you know, more and more people play Magic, the cards get harder to find. So you can't get a Legacy main event is getting harder to do just because so many players can't play it anymore. And what I'm liking about these team events is this is a really accessible way to keep Legacy in the high-level Magic scene. Okay, so maybe not everybody has a Legacy deck, but as long as 1 out of 3 people has one, you can still play high-level Legacy.
Right.
So players are going to go ahead and shuffle up for the second game here. Trent going to be on the play, which is pretty significant. If you look at that last game, die roll dependent probably mattered. If Trent went first, I believe he burned Sky out before the combo.
Yeah, the way that things lined up, that makes sense. Yeah, Sky did have an Angel's Grace that he never had to burn, so maybe that's not exactly how it lines up. That is one thing about ad nauseum. Its redundant combo pieces can matter. Looks
like players are going to play on 6s. So on the Season 1 schedule, we also have playmats to give away at the events. That's for Standard, we're giving away the Art of Ether Hub. These are for both Classics and Opens. So whether you're playing in the main event of that format or playing in a Classic, the playmat you receive is based on the format of the tournament you play. So for Standard players, we have the Ether Hub. For Modern players, it is the Kaladesh Masterpiece Series Art of Ether Vial. And then for Legacy players, we have the new arts, the Eternal Masters art of the card Gamble. So all these are available. They are free with entry to any of those events in Season 1 Opens or Classics. And looks like we are underway for the second game. Both players keeping on 6, scrying to the top. It's going to be Goblin Guide from Avera. And it shows Ad Nauseam on Sky's deck.
Not a land, but not a card that Trent is likely happy to see.
Now, in looking at sideboard cards, we also see a copy of Destructive Revelry in Trent's hand. So even if there were a Leyline of Sanctity, Trent was ready.
Sky was looking at a Lotus Bloom on the top of deck. This is the window where you really have to ask, will this come down on time? And it's going to depend on how many Angel's Graces and Phyrexian Unlifes he has in hand.
Yeah. Draws Lotus Bloom. He'll suspend it. We'll see if it's going to be soon enough. Slate of Hand, rather, from Sky. Finds himself a Seachrome Coast. Trent added Monastery Swiftspear last turn to swing in for 3, so Sky drops down to 15. One thing about the Ad Nauseam deck is it doesn't hurt itself with its lands. And spying over in Sky's hand, he has Ad Nauseam, Angel's Grace, and Phyrexian Unlife right now. So if that Lotus Bloom comes off suspend, Sky has the win rolled up. Now, that's a long time to wait against a burn player.
Right. And Sky's deck actually not playing a single land that can damage himself. We saw Nicholas Bird's list did start playing some number of fetch lands and shock lands. None of that stuff here.
Sky going to continue burning here. Lightning Helix upstairs and a swing for 4 from Trent, rather, puts Sky down to 8. Lotus Bloom at 2, but it's going to get real close here. You see Sky going for a Serum Visions. Though he can, if he has extra copies of Angel's Grace, he can start keeping himself alive using those cards.
Yeah, it looks like he has Unlife, Angel's Grace, and a Serum Visions, so he's just seeing if he needs to use Angel's Grace this turn or if he can afford to Serum Visions.
Yeah, that was the decision, right? He has that Seachrome Coast. He could have Serum Visions, but instead he decided to pass. He's a little, 8's just too low to...
Yeah, well, a Boros Charm kills him here.
Yeah.
2 1-mana spells kills him here.
Suspend 2 Rift Bolts by Trent. Puts Sky down to 5.
That's pretty scary.
Leyline of Sanctity on top.
Right where he wanted it.
Bloom down to 1, but this might actually work out for Skygoy. Draws Dark Slick Shores. Scribe 2, Seachrome Coast, and Simian Spirit Guide. Now, he might put a land on top, but I'm actually thinking that's not a strong play because Trent won't swing the guide this turn. So upkeep, Trent's going to try to kill him, right? With both Rift Bolts. And then when Sky plays Angel's Grace, if I'm on Trent Avera spot, I'm not attacking with Goblin Guide anymore.
Right, certainly not.
So if he leaves a land on top, I don't think he's actually going to get the card for free. So, Trent, do I win? Sky, no. So Angel's Grace reads he can't go below 1. So right now, that sends him to 1. What I do like about in Trent's hand is he's got a copy of Destructive Revelry. So Sky is going to try to go for a Fire Axe and Unlife plus Ad Nauseam. He's going to have a bad surprise there.
Not to mention that he's a bit light on mana to be able to cast both those spells in the same turn.
Yeah, I mean, he might be trying to do it in 2 steps, right? At Unlife, go. If his win here involves Fire Axe and Unlife, Trent's got it covered.
Right. Yeah, Trent doesn't know whether or not Sky has an Angel's Grace in hand, but this is a spot where even just Revelry on the Lotus Bloom on upkeep would be a game-winning play.
Sure, well, he would sack it in response, right?
Right, but he can't cast Ad Nauseam. You just die.
Sure, so he can use it as a way to remove.
It's just like a triple Stone Rain.
And I like certain Trent. He swings the Monastery Swift Spear. Just make a point. He's got other burn here, but Sky's stuck at 1. Angel's Grace is active. Looks like Atarka's Command, Destructive Revelry, Skullcrack in Avera's hand. So upkeep, Lotus Bloom. He casts it. Trent's going to Destructive Revelry it.
Might do that. Might just go for the lethal Skullcrack. Yeah, goes for the Revelry.
So Sky can sacrifice the artifact so that he doesn't take damage. But then what?
Exactly.
He has to have Angel's Grace plus Ad Nauseam to make that work. So he floats 3 black mana. Yeah, I don't... Is the safer play here for Trent to just let the Bloom resolve, though?
Yeah, making this play puts him dead to Angel's Grace. He's already seen the Ad Nauseam.
Well, now Sky, what if Sky just plays Unlife, says go? Right? Avera could still lose.
True.
If he just had saved it for an Unlife, maybe that's stronger, because then, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already sold against this play by the notion that he dies to Angel's Grace.
Yeah, Sky doesn't have it, though. So we will go to a 3rd deciding game. He might have been dead to Angel's Grace anyway, right?
Hey, sure.
It's hard. It's really, if Sky has a lot of Angel's Graces, that's just bad news for the burn player.
That's not what you want to see.
But Trent doing a great job of forcing Sky to combo off early again. See, that Lotus Bloom wasn't suspended on turn 1. It was on turn 2.
Okay, so like your argument, he's dead if he does, dead if he doesn't. Like, don't you just not then? If you're dead, whether or not you commit an action, don't you just not commit that action?
Right. So like whether or not you, I mean, the idea would be, right. So as it turns out, if you hadn't Revelried the Lotus Bloom, Sky's play would have been, I believe, just to cast Unlife Seiko.
Yeah.
Well, then Revelry looks great. You just kill the Unlife.
Yeah.
And I think if it's Angel's Grace plus Ad Nauseam, yeah, you're dead both ways.
Yeah.
So
you at least represent mana. You know, not that Sky has to worry about anything.
Yeah, so if you can't beat Angel's Grace Ad Nauseam, then you want to make sure that you beat Unlife Ad Nauseam.
Right.
And if that's what you want to do, then you should hang on to Revelry.
Right.
We are going to go to a 3rd deciding game now between Ad Nauseam and Burn. No, both players mulling to 6 that time. No turn 0 Leyline, certainly helping out Skygoy, though Trent was at the ready with Destructive Revelry. So if you want to catch up on all the action from yesterday, including Trent Avera's Round 6 win over Tan and Grace, check out the StarCityGames.com YouTube channel. We have all sorts of content over there, including the best of the SCG Tour, highlights from all of our events. So you can get all the rounds from yesterday. Those will come up midweek over on our channel. We also have our Versus Series and Commander Versus Series. Those are players play testing some of the top decks of the format in the Versus Series. And then Commander, we have some of our in-house Commander cast players also playing Magic. We have a lot of that, and it's all free over at youtube.com/StarCityGames.
Multitude of great content on there.
The winner of this third deciding game, is going to be the only remaining undefeated player in the tournament, Sky and Trent, starting at 9-0 here. Getting to be that first fighter 10-0 oftentimes counts as, it only counts as one win, but it can feel like so much more. Especially in these larger tournaments, tiebreakers can matter toward the end of the tournament.
Right.
So when you're at 10-0, it not only means that first of all you're in first place, but it means that if you drop a game later on, you likely have the best tiebreakers at your record.
Right.
It's a very strong spot to make it into top 8 from.
Yeah. If you can be at table 1 or 2 or frequently even 3 in round 15.
Right, you don't have to play the last round.
Well, you're so likely to make it. You could be in a spot where you're in with a loss.
Mulligan here from Trent Avera. Though last game he was on a mulligan, it did not noticeably change his clock.
As long as Burn doesn't draw too many lands, if the deck just lost because it drew 4 lands every time, then mulliganing would, of course, be supremely punishing. The deck's just a little bit better than that.
Modern Classic competitors, that is time in the round. Active player finish your turn, receiving 5.
And that 6 just gets slid right back in for Trent.
That is time in the round.
It's going to be harder on 5. At some point you start being very low on resources. Now what I do like about this matchup is, these repeatable sources of damage, things like Goblin Guide, Monastery, Swift Spirit, they don't really get killed in the matchup. So a turn, say he has a double Goblin Guide hand on 5, that could do 12 damage.
I was going to ask how many Leyline of Sanctity you thought that Sky had in his hand. You can see now that it's 0.
So it starts off on a Temple from Sky. So yeah, in both sideboard games, looks like Trent is going to dodge Leyline of Sanctity, but will that be enough?
It would probably be too much for him to overcome on a mulligan to 5 playing against the Leyline, so he has that going for him.
Turn 1 Lava Spike.
But that means no turn 1 creature, and that is bad news.
Right, so when you're only casting spells, there's no upside really, right? Lava Spike deals 3, and it deals 3. Goblin Guide can deal 6. In this matchup, it's actually very likely to deal 6.
Right, and when your opponent is not damaging themselves with their mana base, that makes it a lot harder to get there with Lava Spikes.
Right, if your opponent doesn't do any damage, it means he's going to have to resolve probably 6 spells, and he's on a 5-card hand. That's going to take a while to do.
6 is higher than 5.
Yeah, and he needs lands too, it's and 6 is bigger than 5.
This is some pretty complicated math.
But only by 1. Second cantrip here for Sky. He cast Sleight of Hand on turn 1, Serum Visions on turn 2.
Okay, so Trent at least has 2 lands.
Right.
No green source as of yet, but he can cast the majority of spells in his deck at least.
Another Temple from Sky. He's deciding on the Scry. And looks like from Skygoy we have Ad Nauseam, Angel's Grace, Phyrexian Unlife, Serum Visions,
Can't
and a
beat
land.
that. Can't beat that with 7.
Well, I don't know if he can accelerate into it yet. He's going to go for Pentad Prism on 2. This means he is threatening lethal next turn.
He doesn't have to accelerate into it.
Boros Charm end step for Trent. No Destructive Revelry. That's no good. Here's his 4th land from Sky. He is live to combo right now.
He's got Pact of Negation back up too.
Yeah, is there anything you'd even have to worry about?
A 13-point burn spell, I suppose. I believe that Trent is not playing any of those.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to go for the win here. Using all the mana off Pentad Prism. He's going to cast Ad Nauseam and respond to his own spell with Angel's Grace. Sounds good. You are allowed to respond to your own spell, though. Mechanically, you do need to announce to your opponent that you're going to do that. I don't think it really matters which order you plays in because one of them has split second.
Right. You just have to make sure that you're not asking your opponent about ad nauseum. You're telling them, and you're telling them also that you're holding priority. Pausing there can be a fatal misstep.
Yeah. Which there was a pause, but yeah, depends on the words you say, really, and that's something that the table judge, this is fine.
Right.
And so he can't lose the game this turn, so he'll draw his whole deck. There still is Lightning Storm. Trent reading the card just to be certain.
This still kills me.
Yes, did.
Yeah, to be fair, you do want to double check, make sure that you're dead.
And that'll do it. Sky Goy is your last undefeated player. He wins the match and improves to 10-0. And once again, we're seeing Ad Nauseam at the top of the standings here in Modern.
So I strongly detest the existence of Simian Spirit Guide in Modern. Ad Nauseam is by far the deck where you might say it's okay for it to be illegal. But back-to-back major tournament wins, that would be really bad news for the potential continued legality of that card in the format. It's funny to me that this is the most successful